This is episode 216 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Katie Cline. Katie is a senior global public relations and communications leader and brand builder and storyteller and the host of Sweet Success. But she has also, in the last 3 years, gotten into short-term rentals with her hospitality background. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to use your background to give people a little bit of a wider scope on what's going on in the business. But why did you go into short-term rentals when you did? Because it's something that obviously you started to learn about, but what was the impetus for you to go and do it?
I've always been interested in real estate, but I never felt confident enough or thought I had enough money to actually get involved in it.
Yeah.
It's a funny side story. I was living in Astoria, Queens when I was, in my earlier 20s, and they had redone these pre-war buildings and they made the one-bedroom apartments look very nice inside. And they, added some string lights and called it a courtyard between the building.
Yeah.
And they were selling them for about $350,000 at that time. And it was still an unapproachable price for me then of where I
Yeah.
was. But more so, I thought to myself, well, surely how much can a one bedroom ever appreciate? Well, those are going for $750 now. So
Yeah.
lesson learned. But to answer your question, I, like you said, come from a really deep background of hospitality. I led global PR and communications for some of the world's best hotel brands like Ritz-Carlton, W Hotels, St. Regis, Luxury Collection. And I had been living in the UK for about 6 years when my husband and I decided we wanted to move back to the States. Unfortunately, my mom is very sick, so I wanted to be close to her. So we
Yeah.
moved back to Astoria in Queens in New York City. And we thought, well, this market is very expensive. Gone were the $350,000 apartments.
Yeah.
And also, we didn't know what our long-term plan was. We didn't know if we wanted to be here for a while. So we weren't sure that we wanted to even consider buying in New York City. So we thought this is a good moment to actually try buying something in upstate New York. My husband and I had been camping many times near Lake George. I just absolutely fell in love with the area.
Yeah.
And on every camping trip on day 2, when I was like dirty and missing, hot water and all the modern conveniences of homes, I would
Yeah.
always think, wouldn't it be nice to own a house here one day? And so anyway, right before we moved back to New York, I saw this perfect property on Zillow, and it was right before Thanksgiving and it was still on the market. And I thought, well, if it doesn't go off the market before Thanksgiving, surely no one buys real
Yeah.
estate, in November and December. It went off the market, but then lucky for me, a 1031 exchange fell through. So the property came back on the market. And within 3 days of moving back to the country, we saw the property. On the 4th day, we made an offer that was accepted. And that really began my short-term rental journey. And what is so interesting to me coming from the hotel space is I really see our job as host. I really see us as hospitality. Yes, we are real estate investors, and that's
Yeah.
what most likely attracted us to the space in the first place. But the second we open our doors to guests, they need to become the priority. And so I'm in so many Facebook groups or online forums, and people are, trying to save money and being like, I don't need to provide shampoo and conditioner. And
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
roll of toilet paper is enough. They can bring their own. And I'm like, we're missing the point here. And the good news is when you put hospitality first, I think it really drives your ADR and your occupancy as well. So it's good for business too.
There are people who are good at hospitality, but with your background, you're looking at it at a lens like I, from what I know already, is long term, not short term, one stay. It's how can we keep building on this so it becomes that recurring income.
Yeah. And one of the lessons that I take from the hotel world, I like to think about it as the art of the arrival, much to the points that you were just making. So when I was working for Le Méridien, we did some proprietary research that proved the first 10 minutes of a guest stay really sets the tone for the
Yeah.
entire experience. And, as travelers, we can all agree with that. So for a hotel, it means, what does the lobby look like? And what does the porte cochere look like? And what does the key cards look like, et cetera, et cetera. But for
Yeah.
us as short-term rentals, I think about it as, did I give you adequate directions, or did you drive past the house 3 times? If you're arriving at night, did the light come on for you? And did it stay on long enough for you to take the baby out of the car or the suitcases out of the car? Did you have to dig around for a physical key, or did I give you a personalized key code that was able to let you in right away?
Yeah.
Do I have my HVAC being able to be operated remotely so I can make sure that the house is either cold or hot for you when you're actually arriving.
That's such my pet peeve.
Ugh,
So my pet peeve when it's burning hot in there and they didn't send anyone over to turn it on. That happened to me this summer in
yes.
Socrates, and I was just like, why?
I mean, our place in Lake George is a cabin in the woods, and it is so cozy in the winter. But if you walk in there and it's like 40 degrees in there, you're not in a good mood. I had someone reach out and say, "We're coming for my friend's birthday and she's vegan. So where can
Yeah,
I eat?" Now that took me a little bit of time to research, but this is where technology comes in, I think, is I don't need AI to answer them, but I can set, the automated messages, or I can
yeah,
have a Google document with my recommendations. So these things are not taking me a lot of time, but they're making them feel like really special and look after. So
yeah,
I use like the templates in Airbnb, but I personally hit send on them every time because
yeah,
I started using automated messages. And what I found is it wasn't delivering the level of service that I wanted to bring. And I have two properties. So I understand some people listening have 10, 20, 100,
yeah,
400. So I'm not saying that this is for everybody. But for me as like a more boutique operator, I don't want to send a message that says, "What brings you to town?" when someone booked for the Belmont Stakes weekend in
right.
Saratoga. That makes
Yeah,
me look like I have no idea what's going on in my town. Of course, I know what brings you to town, right? And I
yeah,
think to that point, too, something else we need to remember from hotels is when someone books a hotel room, they don't need to justify what they're coming for and why they're there. I like to send my first message. And in it, I do ask some open ended questions like, "What brings you to town? Have you been here before? I see you're traveling with a pet. We'll leave some dog bowls out for you. Or I see you're traveling with a young child. We have a pack and
yeah,
play if that might be helpful," those little things. But if they don't reply, that's up to them. It's
right.
like you said about the concierge, like, I'm telling you I'm here, I'm available, I'm interested in talking to you if you'd like. But if you don't want to, that's okay too.
So the company Getaway House, which then became Postcard Cabins, and now we found out why, was bought by Marriott. So now there's really what I believe to be the first acquisition by a hotel of what is generally, I guess, best described as a short-term rental business chain. They have a lot of cabins. I mean, they have like 30 or 40 cabins in each location. But what do you make of this for the hotel industry that now they're going to acquire something that was generally started as a one-off cabin in the woods?
Marriott, no matter your opinion on the company, is, I think, brilliant at M&A. And I'm not just saying that because I worked for Starwood Hotels, who was acquired by
Yeah.
Marriott. So I was actually on the inside front row seat to an acquisition and how they handled it. I think they are thinking about. I think they're seeing exactly what I was just saying. People who are staying with W might also be interested in Postcard, and people who are staying at Postcard might also be interested in W. So it's almost like, how can we get the customer in? And then once they're in, Marriott's loyalty program is so sticky that it will continue to
Yeah.
keep you there. And I think similarly, once they have these loyalty customers who then say, "Hey, on the outside, sometimes when I'm not traveling for business, I'm renting short term rentals," they want to be able to play and compete in that space as well.
Yeah, what do you think's gonna happen? I don't think they're really gonna do much over branding. I think they're just gonna do what you said. They're gonna apply, "Hey, look, here's the loyalty points. Now you have all these other options where you can stay," instead of I don't see them taking over the brand. I think that name change must have happened for a reason as part of the plan.
What's interesting is when Starwood was acquired by Marriott, the Ritz Carlton had been acquired 10 years prior to that. And when Marriott acquired Ritz Carlton, they didn't do anything. They didn't change any of the shared services. Ritz Carlton still had its own corporate headquarters. It wasn't too far from Marriott's headquarters, but it was really church and state. And it
Yeah,
was at the time that Marriott acquired Starwood that they said, "We're going through this massive merger acquisition anyway. Let's, figure out how to bring Ritz Carlton into the fold." And of course, you have some people who are happy about that and some people less so. But
yeah,
really, what I think we're seeing in the hotel industry in general is that, especially for publicly traded organizations, shared services is what's winning, at least on Wall Street. So the fact that Starwood had 9 brands, Marriott had probably 21 at the time because they had 30 after the acquisition. You could more or less have the same headcount in corporate and then spread those costs out to either, 5,000 hotels or to
Yeah.
10,000 hotels, all of a sudden the street is going to say, we'll take that one, please. So I don't know. I think that if it was a hotel brand acquisition, I could see it much more being folded into shared
Yeah.
services
Yeah.
model. But I think you're right. What Postcard does is so special and so unique that I think Marriott will be as excited to learn from them as Postcard will have incredible learnings from the Marriott team and
Yeah.
incredible distribution capabilities from being on Marriott's website and from being part of the loyalty program.